Hello everyone and welcome to Werven's World and welcome to my introduction to the Vodyani. The Vodyani might be the weirdest race of Endless Space 2, and the reason for that is that they break so many rules that other races have to follow. They do not really colonize other planets, but instead they live on these huge arcs that you can basically anchor to planets to capture all the resources that they provide, but they have some other quirks as well. Basically, they used to live on this planet, but due to over-industrialization, this planet kind of got destroyed, but they found some technology that saved them, and due to this technology, they started worshipping this technology. So they're basically also a really religious race. And now, as you can see here, they basically go across space and they seek other people to convert, control, and consume. However, they don't seem to be very interested in other people because during the game, you can never have any other population except Vodyani in your empire. But let's first see the introduction video and then we'll go into the specific rules of the Vodyani and some interesting things about how to play them. Before I play it, it's actually quite interesting. The video of this race in the folder of where Endless Space 2 is installed is not called the Vodyani, it's called the Vampirilis, which is quite interesting because these Vodyani are kind of space vampires, and throughout this video you'll find out why.
We once had a home world, but we were poor caretakers. Had we not discovered the virtual relics, our tale would have ended there. By their grace, we were elevated, and we strive to serve their memory. Yet, in our moment of exaltation, a false prophet arose. The heretics summoned ancient demons and corrupted the faithful. But we refuse his lies and reject his accusations. We will see the heretic drown in his blasphemies. He will not break our will and bring ruin on our church. Only then can we shed our mortal cloth and rise endless.
Alright, let's look into the Vodyani. As you can see here, they are ship-bound, and that means that they live on great arcs and colonize systems in a unique way. When arcs anchor in an unpopulated system, they exploit all its colonizable planets simultaneously. Arcs can be gained by leeching captive populations and amassing the unique resource Essence. Use Essence, a unique resource, to generate populations and create arcs. Arcs are used to colonize a system and can be moved at any time. So how does this work? That's a lot of information. So as you can see here, we have an arc, and that's an absolutely humongous ship, and this arc actually houses not only the population of the Vodyani, but also the buildings that you will be creating. So the nice thing is, if we go here, you can see here that we have one Vodyani. And it takes us 27 turns to get a new one, so they're very, very slow at growing. And that is because the Vodyani get a minus 50% population growth penalty. So it takes ages to actually get new Vodyani. However, you can make this quicker if you use Essence, that's this resource here, in order to make a new Vodyani. It takes you one turn, and for your first one, or basically second Vodyani, it takes you 250 essence, and then it becomes 500, and then for your fourth it becomes 750, and so on. So you can increase your population. The interesting thing is that one population could basically extract resources from 3 planets if I would have the technology to use these planets. As you can see in this little video here, I already have 3 Vodyani and I have 2 desert planets. I'm now researching the technology to colonize desert planets, and it will be done next turn. So now when I press and turn, you will see that once this turn is over, suddenly I have 3 Vodyani on every planet. So that basically means that the population from my ship is raiding all these planets and getting all the resources from all of these planets at the same time. So even though they are pretty slow at growing, once you have enough technologies to kind of populate all the other planets, you will do so simultaneously. One thing that's important to know though, that unlike other races, you cannot just keep growing in order to kind of fill all these population slots. Instead, they are locked. The way you unlock them is to build system development. So basically upgrade your system to this level 2 development and then to the level 3 development to unlock all these things and in order to get more of these Vodyani. Now, when we talk about these arcs, there's a couple of very interesting things about them. They've got this special ability here called Anchor or Withdraw Arc. When you anchor them, then basically they start extracting resources from all these planets. And if I now unanchor, then suddenly I lose all the resources that I get and this planet is not colonized anymore. So then I could move this arc to a different planet and colonize there, just in case I find a better system, for example. The nice thing is that it brings its buildings with it. I'll show you that in my next save game. 1 second and I'll load it. Alright, as you can see here, I have 2 arcs and 2 systems colonized. This system was my starting system and I have a lot of buildings here. It's level 2, I've got a trade company HQ here, and I have 5 Vodyani here. Now, this one here is way less developed. I have 2 planets colonized and I only have 2 Vodyani and I have way less buildings. What happens if we unanchor these and then we bring them to the other system? We just basically switch them. I'll just press and turn. Alright, it's our turn again. So we can now anchor this one here and this one here. So now we basically switched systems. So let's look at this one first. Of course, I've immediately colonized all the planets because I have the technology to colonize all the planets. And as you can see, all of them get the 2 Vodyani that we used to have on the previous system as well, because this ship basically just has 2 Vodyani. Also, the buildings get transferred there as well. So if we now go to this system, somehow the level 2 modernization doesn't seem to count for some reason. And I'm not entirely sure why, so we basically have to build it again. So maybe that's a bug, I'm not entirely sure, or maybe that's intended, but as you can see here now, I only have 3 Vodyani instead of the 5 that I used to have, because these ones here are locked. However, if I press and turn, you can see that I immediately get my 5 Vodyani because there were 5 on my ship, so I can actually colonize these planets very easily. This one here cannot be colonized because I don't have the technology yet to colonize lava. So that works quite well, and it works a little bit in a sense that if you have a system, you can just build it up, you can build all these cool buildings, and then at some point if you find a better system, you just move your arc, you lose a couple of turns of income, but then you can colonize a system and immediately have all the population, all the buildings that you've built and so on to exploit that system. So how exactly do we get these arcs? Well, we can build them in our planets and it only costs 1 turn, which is kind of cool, and it costs a certain amount of essence. So as you can see, this one here cost me 2000 essence because I already have 4. So basically it's 500 per arc that you already have. So the next one would cost me 2500. So basically, if I make this, it will cost me the 2000 essence and in 1 turn I'll have it. Another way of using essence is in order to increase your population. So for that you need to have this holy proliferation, and that costs a certain amount of essence to increase your population, as we talked about earlier. So those are your 2 ways of using essence. So how exactly do you get this essence? Well, there's a couple of ways of doing it. First of all, we can extract it from our opponents, and those opponents can be either major factions, but you can also go to minor faction system and draw their essence. So how that works is you need to have a ship that has this draw essence module installed. And once you have this module installed, then you can go to another system and you can click on this action here, harvest essence. And that basically means that you will be getting a certain amount of essence per turn, and the amount that you get depends on how many modules you have and how many ships you have drawing essence. And you can see it by this pretty cool animation here that shows you the essence flowing to your ships. Of course, you need to be able to get into the enemy's border, so if they close their border on you, then you won't be able to do this. However, with minor factions, that's not really a problem. This also means that you shouldn't necessarily take over the planets of minor factions, because you basically lose another target from which you could have been harvesting essence. So, what is the other way of drawing essence? Well, for that we also need to look at modules, and those modules are on arcs. So if we go to our arc and we edit it, then you can see that there are these weird modules that you can't see on any other ships that are basically support modules for the arc itself. And if they are anchored to a system, for example here if we have the science module, where is it here, you basically get 10 extra science from the star system. If we have this production one here, you get extra production from the star system. So basically you can kind of customize your arc depending on if you want more science, more dust, more production, more influence, and so on. So basically you could see these as another building that gives you some resource. However, there's also one that gives you essence. So this one is called All Must Provide, which gives us essence from the star system. So that basically gives you a passive income of essence every turn. As you can see here, when I hover over this, you can see plus 60 essence from system essence production, and that comes from those arc modules. Now, as you can see, there is another way I'm getting essence here, and that's plus 10 essence from hunting grounds. So how does that work? Well, we have here a icon that says this is Wervin's hunting ground. It will disappear in 8 turns because there's only 0 population left and 8 buildings left of this system that I've been conquering. So this is quite interesting. Basically, you can never conquer a system like other factions can. Normally other factions, they basically invade a system and then they take everything over. They get the initial population and some of the buildings might be left and so on. However, if I invade a population, I don't immediately colonize it. Instead, basically my Vodyani are still extracting everything they can from this planet because they themselves cannot settle this, so for them it would be useless if all this stuff is there. So basically they harvest this and it takes a certain amount of turns, and for every turn they do that, they get a 10 essence from the hunting grounds. So in the end that can actually add up quite quickly. If later on you actually do want to colonize this, you need to bring an arc there and you anchor it, and now I've colonized this system, but still there's the hunting grounds left, because remember, the buildings are on my arc. So all the buildings and population that's on the planet, those are kind of being hunted at the moment for getting more essence. So just so you can see this in effect, as you can see here, I've been harassing these Horatio all the time and they only have 1 planet left, and now I brought my 2 fleets with a combined invasion strength of 1230 soldiers. So I will now invade this system and you can see what happens. Let's just do it quickly. And I have a decisive victory. Now these are all dead. But this is not immediately my planet. So I can see here that some of them are colonizable, so if I would bring a ship here, then I would immediately have Vodyani on these 2 planets, but now there's hunting ground here. So actually now for 25 turns I get extra essence because the original planets on this system had 7 population and 18 buildings that I will now basically be turning into extra essence. Another way of getting essence is through this alms for essence improvement. So basically that costs you a lot of money because all the dust that this system produces is basically burned away, and 25% of that is converted into essence. So that can give you quite a boost of essence. For example, if I activate it here, then you can see that now I get 299 and I got 190 before. So that's actually quite a good way of boosting it, but of course you will be losing out on a lot of dust. So now that we've talked about how to gather the essence in order to make these arcs, I thought I would talk a little bit about these arcs because they're quite interesting. As you can see, they just cost a certain amount of essence and a turn. What that means is that you should always optimize your arc before you start building one. Basically, if you want to have an arc that will go fighting, because they actually have really good combat stats, especially for the beginning of the game, they're actually really brilliant. You can just optimize it with a lot of weapons. If however you want to make a arc that has a lot of science stuff or needs to be defensive, you can just drag all this stuff there and basically customize it for what you want, and you can drag all the most expensive components on there that you want, because it will not cost you anything extra. The only exception for this is stuff like this that costs an additional strategic resource. So if I drag this one here, you can see that production will now cost me 2000 essence and 4 of this, because this is a very special module and that cost me some extra resources. But otherwise, just take the most expensive and good stuff that you can get, because it will not cost you anything extra. However, if later on you want to upgrade it, it will be costing you extra dust. So this is the best time to do it. So now that we've looked into the major trait, the ship bound of the Vodyani and how to harvest essence, so now we really know what makes the Vodyani, we can look at the kind of minor traits that they have. They have fast travelers, which means you get +1 movement point on your ship, which means that you can get to different places quicker. Of course, that's very nice. You also have fearless warriors, which gives you +20% infantry health on Empire. This is great, because if you look at here, you start off as religious, and one of the compulsory laws of religion is that you have righteous fury. You can attack and invade in enemy territory while being at Cold War. So you don't even need to declare war, and you can already invade systems with quite efficient troops because they have more health. Alright, lastly we have legendary heroes, which gives -50% upkeep on heroes, so they're cheaper, and they get extra experience per turn, so basically they grow in level quicker, so you get stronger heroes quicker than your opponents. And then of course we have here xenobiology and off-world agribusiness, which just means that you start with these technologies unlocked at the start of the game already. Lastly, I thought I'd show you here, mine are research experts, and that's because I assimilated the Deuvivans, or whatever they're called. However, as you saw before, we cannot actually really assimilate races in a sense. We cannot have other populations in our empire, we can only have Vodyani. Well, the way this works is you can still assimilate them. Even if you conquer them and you don't get their population, it still counts as if you've assimilated them, and you still get the trait of that minor faction that you've conquered. When we look at the technology tree, we can see here all these Vodyani specific technologies, which is normal for every civilization. They all have their own military ships, of course. One cool thing here is that you can upgrade your arc to have more manpower capacity, so it will be very good at invading systems, which is quite cool. However, there's another change, and that's here in interspecies HR. Normally, this technology gives you +5 approval per different species that's in a system, but because we are the Vodyani, we don't want to have other species in our ship, so instead we get this building here, the Center for Holy Tithe, which gives us +10 approval per system level, so that changed a little bit. One thing that also works differently for the Vodyani is the chain gang program. Basically, normally you would sacrifice 1 population and some food in order to create 300 manpower, but for the Vodyani this costs you 300 essence and a turn. What's good to know about the Vodyani is that essence is really your life force. Early on you really need a lot of this because you want to make new arcs, to colonize new planets, and you also would preferably have some extra essence to do this holy proliferation to get more population quicker, because it takes you a lot of time to get extra population because of this 50% penalty to your population growth. Now, how do you get essence? Well, you need to discover some minor civilizations. So I happen to know that here in this level there is a minor civilization here, but what I normally like to do is basically scout around with probes to hopefully find immediately a system I could go to. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have a minor civilization, but then on my leecher what you can do is you can attach your hero to it. I'm going to do that now, and the reason for that is the hero has a ship that's actually quite good. It has a lot of weapons and it can protect your leecher from pirates. Of course, you don't have to do this. You can also just attach your hero to your planet so that you get more production, more happiness, whatever you want to specialize it in. So I'm not sure entirely what's better, but this is how we're going to play for now. And we are going to send this leecher this way. Now, unfortunately, I cannot give my hero these essence drain modules because I don't have any money. Now, for research, you really have to look at how you are going at the moment, because, for example, I start next to a Mediterranean planet at the moment. Those are very easy to colonize. So I could research immediately these rare earth foams to colonize Mediterranean. This would effectively double my population, because this one Vodyani would also go there and extract the resources from this planet. So that would be quite nice. What you can also do is focus on production, of course. You can do what any other race does. You can also go the military route immediately to make more ships that can protect your leechers, or you can just, well, do whatever you want, really. But I'm going to end my turn now. I'm not building anything, I'm not researching anything, but just for the sake of argument. This one can now go here, and we will now find this minor civilization. So we can immediately start harvesting essence, because that's so important. Now we get plus 50, and the reason for that is that my essence leechers at the moment have 4 of these modules, and those give 12.5 tribute each, so 4 times 12.5 is 50. So immediately I have an essence income. Of course, this also means that you can kind of get screwed over by your beginning placement. If you don't have any colonizable planets, let's say you start next to only lava planets or something like that, then it might be good to move your arc. But also, if you don't have any minor factions nearby, you might have to start draining from other factions, and this can be quite hard to do. So you can kind of get screwed over by the placement of systems. I have the feeling that Vodyani are more sensitive than other races to their starting placement. Whether this is entirely true, or I am just bad at playing the Vodyani, that's of course also very possible. So take all of this, what I'm saying here, with a grain of salt, because I'm not an expert on the game. This is just my opinion on how I've been playing this game for now. But basically, the problem is that these minor factions, they spawn pirates. So your leechers will be chased away by pirates all the time. So you basically want to have some protection for them. There's a couple of ways you can do that. I now attach this flagship to it. You can also change your leechers to have extra guns. There's 1 gun slot, so basically I could change this one for guns. So if I have a couple of leechers, they might be able to chase some pirates away. Or you can research the military route and then protect your leechers, and then build a couple of leechers with your arc here. One thing that's good to be aware of is that your exploration ships actually also start off with 1 essence drain module. It's not a lot, but it would give you 12.5 extra tribute if you decide to use your explorer for that. Now, what's also interesting is your arcs, and you can use your arc, of course, to get a lot of income, which is a good idea, but with your second arc, if you can't find any planets to colonize, go and harass your enemies with it, because they're really, really good at it. As you can see here, for example, this exploration ship here has an attack power of 33, and my arc has an attack power of 2398. So these arcs are powerhouses. They're absolutely huge. They look lovely in battle as well, but they're just really, really powerful. So if you have one to spare, you can just go and harass your opponents and basically kill their fleets and give them an inherent disadvantage at the beginning of the game by basically destroying their exploration ships, their fleets, and so on, because they are a force to be reckoned with. The Vodyani also have pretty cool ship designs, and one of the star players being the actual arc. The arc is very huge, so I just put it together with a leecher. Unfortunately, I can't show the other ships in the same battle because the arc actually cost 8 command points, and here I have a limit of 10 command points, so I can't really put much into it. But let's start this battle. I tried to record it before, but actually the the auto camera did a really bad job, so I'll try to kind of get a good recording with the free camera, but I'm not necessarily a very good cameraman. So we'll see what happens. We'll put it on advanced so that we can actually put the leecher together with the arc, so we will see the scale of it. Alright, so we'll put it on overview so we know where we arrive, which is there. We'll put it on free camera. Now we've arrived. And as you can see, this humongous ship here is our arc, and this is our leecher, which is pretty humongous, and everything about it looks pretty cool, I think. So the other army is over there. So, as you can see, the sense of scale of this arc is pretty huge. So let us now find the other ship so you can kind of see some of their designs as well. Alright, next up are the Wheeled, is the exploration ship, the leecher, and then some of the tier 1 ships and the tier 2 ship. So let us click on the battle and let's start fighting. So let's all put them together again and fight. Alright, that was my overview and introduction on the Vodyani. Again, as with all of these introductory videos, this is not supposed to be a strategy guide on how to win with them, but rather give you an overview on kind of the atmosphere of this race, what they're all about, and kind of going a little bit into the intricacies on how their mechanics work. So I hope it was useful, and see you next time.